us. They're not going to succeed. It's making us stronger. It's making us stronger. Biden and his accomplices want to collapse the American system, nullify the will of the actual American voters, and establish a new base of power that gives them control for generations. I don't know. Do you think he really thinks in terms of generations? I don't think so. I don't know. He's got a lot of bad fascists around him, though. That's what they like. They have a perfect president. He'll do whatever they tell him to do. But Crooked Joe will not succeed with these plans, and he will not get away with these crimes. He'll be tried at the ballot box this November, and he will be judged and convicted by the American people. Right? Under Biden, we now have a brand new category of crime. It's called migrant crime. We have migrant crime. We have criminals that are going around having boxing matches with our police officers. Nobody's ever seen it before. Nobody. We have tough people coming in, and you know that. And they're coming in from jails and prisons. They're emptying out all over the world. Last night, they had 4 people coming in from the Congo. Where do you live in the Congo? What avenue do you live? Oh, we come from a prison in the Congo. The Congo, they're coming from Africa, they're coming from Asia, they're coming from all over South America, they're coming from the Middle East, they're coming from China. 29,000 people in the last 3 months from China. They all happen to be of the age from 18 to 25. What the hell is going on with that? So that's called military fighting age, right? That's called prime fighting age. Dana White of the USC says, I like fighters from 18 to 25. That's what's coming in from China, 18 to 25. Last week, a beautiful 22-year-old nursing student in Georgia, Laken Riley. I spoke to her parents, the most magnificent people, devastated. And I mean, honestly, I hope they don't hear me say it. They can never be the same. They can never be the same. She was barbarically attacked while she was out on her morning run. She ran to keep herself in great shape. She was a nursing student, the #1 best. She was just brutally, you read about it, it's a big story now. She was brutally assaulted, horrifically beaten, kidnapped, and savagely murdered. Almost beyond recognition. Can you imagine this? The monster charged in her death is an illegal alien migrant who was led into the country and released into our communities by Crooked Joe Biden. We had him locked out. It was very hard to get into our country 3 years ago. Now, it's real easy. It's real easy. We mourn her terrible loss, and we send our love to Laken's family, and they are incredible people, I can tell you that. In Texas a few weeks ago, another illegal alien animal was charged with sadistically murdering a 16-year-old Texas high school cheerleader. Beautiful, beautiful young woman, stabbing her to death in her home, dumping her body in the bathtub to be discovered 2 hours later by her mother. And last Sunday in Louisiana, a savage Biden migrant criminal was charged for raping a 14-year-old girl by holding a knife to her throat before going on to repeatedly stab a local man in the face, all over his face and his back, while robbing him as he was getting out of his car. This Biden migrant was arrested while standing in the middle of the street, drenched in blood, and it was the blood of his victim. Not one more innocent American life should be lost to migrant crime. Gotta stop it. It's a new category, migrant crime. We call it Biden migrant crime, but frankly, it's long, so we call it migrant crime. I came up with that name because I come up with a lot of good names, don't I? But it's migrant crime. It's a whole new category of crime, and it's probably going to be more vicious than anything we've seen. These are vicious people. They're from jails. Many of them are from jails. Many of them are from mental institutions. This is what they're dumping into the United States. And I know the people, the leaders of most of these countries. I know them, and they're very streetwise. They're very wise. They can't believe Biden's the president. They can't even believe it. And they're taking advantage of our country. They want to clean out their jails. Jails all over the world, you take a look at their prison population, it's way down because they've taken people out of those jails and they've dumped them into our country. They've taken people out of their mental institutions and insane asylums. You know what that is? Somebody said, what's the difference? I said, insane asylum is like mental institution on steroids. That's Silence of the Lambs. Did you ever hear of a fine gentleman named Hannibal Lecter? Hannibal Lecter. Does anybody know the name? Please raise your hand. Yes. Well, that's what they have in insane asylums, and they're dumping them into a community near you. That's a lot. This is not good. This is not good. That's why a central question in this election is whether the foreign armies Joe Biden has smuggled across our border will be allowed to stay, or whether they will be told to get the hell out of here and go back home. We'll take them back home. Take them back home. In Venezuela, Did you just see Maduro? Venezuela, it's unbelievable. Venezuela comes out and said, we're dumping all our criminals into the United States. But the second part, we're never taking them back. Don't ever bring them back. They're not going to tell me that. They're not going to tell me that. We brought MS-13 back by the thousands. By the thousands. They said, we're not taking them back. You know what Biden said? Oh, they're not taking them back. Oh. The guy can't find his way off a stage. Stairs all over his stage. You've heard this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you could jump off the front if you have to. And he'll find the only place on a stage where there's no stair. If Joe Biden's illegal alien migrants do not go back to their countries, we will never get our country back. But we're going to take them back because they're not going to go back. We're going to take them back. Fast. It's going to happen quickly. Local police. You know, the local police know every one of them. Somebody said, how are you going to do that? It's not a Washington thing. It's local police. First of all, we're giving our policemen immunity from prosecution because when they stop crime, they get prosecuted. They take away their house, their pension, their family. They lose their wife or husband. On day one of my administration, I will terminate every open border policy of the Biden administration, and we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history because we have no choice. We have no choice. And it's no wonder Joe Biden and his thugs are so desperate to stop us because they know that we are the only ones who can stop them. We will stop them. They are bad people. They use weaponization of Justice Department. Let's go after my political opponent because I can't speak. I can't communicate. I can't debate. I can't stand at a location that they tell me. I keep falling down when I walk up a flight of stairs. That's why they're weaponizing law enforcement for high-level election interference where Joe Biden goes after his political opponent. He should drop all charges against me. You know, every one of these 91 counts, they're not 91 counts. They're not legit. They're Biden counts. He worked with Fani, even though it's spelled Fanny, F-A-N-I, Fani. How about that one? How about that one with her lover? Nathan Wade, her lover. Let's go get Trump. Because if they go after Trump, they can pay him more money. And then she can take beautiful trips on the sea, beautiful trips to foreign islands. Her and her lover, they have such a good time. The guy got paid almost $1 million, and he never did it before. But he did the other thing before that he did with Fani. He did plenty of that. That's what he's good at, I guess. And this was before, long before. So they cooked up these charges early. They said, let's get a high-level individual so we can charge the state more money. That's what happened. Oh, and then when they get caught, she said, oh, well, I paid him back. Oh, how? In cash. I gave him cash. Really? She gave him cash. By the way, if she gave him cash, that's even worse. Because where the hell did she get the cash, right? I paid her back. Because if she didn't pay him back, she committed a big crime. Because she got money that she gave through the state. So she said she paid him back. She didn't do it. That charge should be dropped. They should all be dropped. And they worked closely with the Department of Justice. You know, he went there for 2 8-hour visits and then numerous other visits. But he was there, in there, all day long in the White House Counsel. This was a scheme of the White House. The Manhattan DA, he took his number one guy, and put him into the Manhattan DA's office. Does Matt Gaetz know that? He put his number one guy into the Manhattan DA's office. That's not the Manhattan DA. That's all being run by the Department of Justice for election interference. Knock out your political opponent. It ain't working. The one thing they didn't know is the people of our country hear about it from me. Most people don't talk about it. When this happens to most people, these kind of things, if they're politicians, they walk up to a microphone and they say, ladies and gentlemen, I will fight for my name and reputation, but right now I'm going back to my family, and you never hear it. With me, we don't do that. We tell you what it's all about. And our poll numbers have skyrocketed. I never heard about being indicted before. Being indicted, me? I went to the Wharton School of Finance. I was really good. I did all these things. Then they indicted. And it was all like in this little short period of time. I got indicted over a tiny little period of time in my life, 4 times. That's more than Al Capone. That's more than Alphonse. Did you know who Alphonse Capone is? He was the meanest guy. He was a very volatile mobster in Chicago, affectionately known as Scarface. He was a very nice man. He was not, if he didn't like you at dinner, if he thought you were smiling in a mocking way, you were dead. He got indicted less than I did. He killed lots of people. He killed them just for sport. No, but the people understand it because I can talk about it. I have a voice. I can talk about it. We had the thing in Washington, deranged Jack Smith. He's a deranged human being. He has a huge record of failure because he goes so far out and people end up not being convicted. He goes too far. He's a man, he's just a terrible human being. But he's a deranged person who wants to hurt people. And we're hurting him. I'll tell you, we're hurting him. He stinks. That's not the kind of people. You know, being a prosecutor is a very important thing. Being a fair and good prosecutor is a very important thing. But some of these animals, I mean, they are bad. But what they've done is, it's all coming out of crooked Joe Biden because, look, he can't campaign. He can't campaign. He can't speak. He can't walk. He looks like hell. And I will say this, before my indictments, I talk much differently about him. They know, front row Joes know, right? A big change in course. I used to, you know, I had respect for the office of the president. And if you listen to MSDNC and CNN, they're all getting no ratings now, which is great. But if you listen to them, and if you go back a year, they were all saying, well, no, you could never indict Trump on this. They indicted me. You could never indict him on January 6th. They indicted me. You could never indict him on the document hoax. I come under the Presidential Records Act. I'm allowed to do all of that. I'm allowed to do whatever I want. New York Times did a story. Please, 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 Mr. President, please, could we have our boxes? And if the president says no, he doesn't have to give them. But think of this. Think of this. Joe Biden was totally exonerated last week. He's got 10 times the documents, and they're classified. And he's not under the presidential, and they exonerated him. Of course, they said he was grossly incompetent, but we don't have to get into that. But that'll come up, you watch. But we'll be in very good shape. So, a man who totally violated every law in the book on classified documents, who had many of the documents stored in Chinatown. And by the way, did you see those boxes? Those boxes were seriously used. They were used. Those boxes, they had a lot of stuff taken out. They weren't just boxes, Matt. Those boxes had stuff coming in and out. Where's Hunter? Where is he? Where's Hunter? No, they had stuff coming in and out, and they were stored in Chinatown. They also had him under his beautiful Corvette. The Corvette was dumping grease all over him. They were in the garage. And it's one of those doors that costs very little money that you can take a scissor and cut. Whereas mine were at the Great Mar-a-Lago. I had Secret Service all over the place. I had a locked door. You know, they asked me, could I put another lock? We showed them. I said, here's where they're stored. Take a look. They looked. They said, could you put an extra? We had a good lock there. We had Secret Service. They said, could you put an extra lock in? And I said, sure, put an extra lock. They wrote me a letter. Thank you very much. Put an extra lock. And then they raided Mar-a-Lago after that. These are bad people. These are bad people. And you're not allowed to do that according to the Fourth Amendment. You can't do that. All of this is only happening because I'm running for president and we're leading in the polls. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having any of this. We wouldn't be having any of this. In the latest morning console poll, we're at 81% in the Republican primary. Although I must say, we shouldn't be talking. I haven't heard about this woman for the last 5 days since we beat her actually in her home state so badly. In a record, we beat her in a record. Are you from there? Yes. Since we beat her there, and then in Michigan, in the largest vote, primary vote in history, we beat her by 42 points. And I haven't heard about her, so I won't even use. People say, don't even talk about her. Don't talk to her. But I have to. When I have some, I have to talk. Front row Joes. Because she's bad news. I know her very well. She's very average. In the new Emerson Hill poll of the general election, we're crushing Joe Biden in every swing state, including a big lead here in the great state of North Carolina. We're killing it. And in Harvard-Harris, we're leading Crooked Joe in a 6-point, that's considered a landslide. And, you know, when I'm leading by 6 points, it's really much more. I hate to say why. People don't want to get involved. Who are you voting for? None of your business. Anybody that says none of your business is voting for Trump, I hate to say. I shouldn't say that. But when they say it's none of your business, that means they're voting for Trump. The radical left Democrats rigged the presidential election in 2020, and we're not going to allow them to rig the presidential election of 2024. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of honor. I'm being indicted for you. I am. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I stand before you today not only as your past and hopefully future president, but as a proud political dissident and as a public enemy of a rogue regime. This is a rogue and dangerous machine. This is a anti-democratic machine. These people are thugs, and they're bullies. And what they've done to people, you heard the hostages singing. That was hostages They're the J6 hostages, I call them, because they are hostages. They're policemen, they're firemen, they're accountants. They're lawyers in some cases. They're put in jail for extended periods of time, for very long periods of time. They're hostages. You heard them singing. You heard the spirit that they had? The spirit is unbelievable. That song became the #1 song. And you can check me. You know, they always check my facts. Oh, look at all that fake news. That's a lot of fake news back there. Wow. Uh-oh. The red lights are starting to go off. Anytime I start talking, they take the red light off. You know, it's hard when CNN, of course, nobody's watching CNN or MSNBC, but it's hard when I'm getting ready to talk about CNN. The light always, they're very good at it now. They get it off just in time as I'm about to say that their ratings challenged. They get it off, but there's not too many people watching anymore. You know, the truth is they've lost such credibility that they don't have the same power that they used to have. Never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you, and I won't. And in the end, they're not after me, they're after you. I just happen to be standing in the way. Oh, it's so pleasant. You know, I had a nice life before this, right? Right? Front row Joes? I had the nicest life. Great company. I did a great job. Built this beautiful company, some of the best places in the world. Lots of good things. Everybody, I hope, is on truth, because truth is hot. Truth social. It's hot. I call that the real voice of America. It's called the real voice of America. It is. Truth is doing great. I hope you go on it. You ask the press, every one of them are on it. I said to them, who's not on truth? Nobody raised their hand. They hate to do it that way, though. They hate. But they're all on truth, so I hope you are. We are delighted to be joined today by an incredible gentleman who I saw about 4 years ago. And he went to a town hall meeting. He was not a politician, which I think is his advantage. But he was a great natural speaker. A man who is a very outstanding person. You know, he drove a truck. I think it was a forklift. And he went over Texas. It was a forklift. I love forklifts. They're power those suckers. They can lift it. What the hell? I watch all these guys, Mark, working out. They're working out. They can never top a forklift, right? I'd rather drive a forklift than lift this way. But he drove it, and he drove it well. But I guess he was complaining about taxes in his town, and he got up and he made a speech. And they didn't care too much about what he said. They just said, this is the greatest speaker we've ever heard. Would you like to run for lieutenant governor or something? And he ran. Look at him, he's laughing. He ran. And he's been an unbelievable lieutenant governor, Mark Robinson. I heard him, and by the way, his wife is much more lovely than he is. I can tell you that, and she's my friend. Thank you, darling, for being here. But, you know, I heard him coming in on the plane. I was listening, and I said to the people on the plane, watch this. This is Martin Luther King on steroids, okay? Now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King ×2.